Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get our public commission meeting into order. So we'll just start by recognizing the members that are in attendance. Myself, Judge Marsico. We also have Judge McDermott, Judge McLaughlin, Chairman Fox, Attorney Balkovich, Secretary Harry, and also Senator Street. And then we're missing one other member. I can't see your name tag. Yes, Attorney Bible. Welcome, Attorney Bible, and welcome, Attorney Balkovich as well, our new commission appointees. Thank you for joining us. And then virtually, we're joined by Judge Daly. And did I miss anyone else?
Representative
Oh,
Bonner.
yeah, Representative Bonner is still online as well. I believe that's everybody. So with that, I will pass it on to our Executive Director, Matt Kleinman.
Great. Chair, can you introduce the approval of the minutes for
Yes,
motion?
I will. Can we get about introduce a motion to approve the meeting minutes? Can I get a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Judge McDermott. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, and then just a call for any public comment.
Yes, right. And then also, is there anyone online that would like to provide public comment for the meeting?
No one signed up ahead of time, but if there is anybody online that wants to provide public comment, please use the raise hand function in Zoom. I don't
All right.
see anybody.
Okay, thank you, Christy.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you. Moving down to the executive update, I think the reminder with DA Bible and Attorney Balkovic, we have full commission now. We had that last time, and just as a reminder, these appointments are now all through September 30th, 2025. So it's great we have a full commission and a full set of appointments. So thank you to everyone for that. I still want to give the opportunity for Chairman Fox and Secretary Harry if they have comments.
I just wanted to just thank Brett Miller for his participation in the Association of Paroling Authorities International Conference that was held in early May. We presented on the new guidelines. They were unique, really, to the country and the way we do paroling authority guidelines now, and to the world. So, interestingly, we have received inquiries from South Africa who attended this presentation and were interested in learning more about what's going on in Pennsylvania. The only other updates I have is that we are implementing now the revocation guidelines that have been proposed by the commission. They seem to be going smoothly, and we've started transferring data on to the commission around our guideline departure. So hopefully that can be analyzed and we can get some feedback at some point down the line. But so things are going very smoothly, but we really did appreciate Brett's presentation and it was very well received across the country. There was a lot of polling authorities there and even international. Thank you.
Good morning. I only had a couple quick updates. Very excited about the work, potential study around veterans. And just a quick note, last week we celebrated the 10-year anniversary of our first Veterans Service unit at the State Correctional Institution at Dallas. We since have added 4 more we have a total of 4 male VSUs and 1 female VSU. And we're just really proud of the work that we've done over the past several years around the veterans, both incarcerated veterans as well as our staff. And just some strong R updates. We are in the process of finalizing our inter-rater reliability exercise. And then we're also looking forward to future conversations with the board regarding how to implement this and incorporate this into the decision-making instrument. So that's all I had.
Great, thank you. I just want to add on a thanks to the chairman. Several of us went during this quarter to the parole board's retreat, and it was great to hear about the process of parole, and also to learn a lot about individuals with autism who are in the system, both in DOC and with the parole board. So myself, Brett Miller, and Christy Bundro attended, and we learned a lot. So thank you. And I also just want to thank the secretary for the work with Brett Buckland our continued efforts to share data with DOC and really be thinking holistically and synergistically and whatever other istically ways to collaborate and think about research and data sharing, including a renewed interest, I believe, with PCCD on population projections now that COVID has kind of waned, starting that process with DOC and thinking of how to use AOPC filings all through the system, that the work that Brett's done for a long time, and possibly even reconvene a committee that former Executive Director Bergstrom used to chair with PCCD on projections and research, I believe. And so Brett Buckland and I have been talking about that, and we'll be communicating with Mike Pennington, the Executive Director of the PCCD, about that issue. So thank you both for that. One other quick update here under the staff update. The last commission meeting, the commission approved the hiring of Noah Painter Davis, a professor at the University of New Mexico. Want to let everyone know that he accepted the position and will be starting with the commission July 8th. So we're really excited to welcome Noah on board. I think the timing is fantastic, especially given this big veterans project, that he could be assisting with that, especially with his more of a holistic view of the criminal justice system and the role of prosecution and probation, and in a research space will be a great benefit to the commission. So with that, I'll turn it back to the chair.
And so I believe next on the agenda, we have the discussion item regarding Matt's promotion. So we're actually going to ask Matt if he can just briefly leave the room while the rest of the commission discusses. Thank you. Okay, so I think as everyone knows, many of the staff, particularly the executive director, they have dual positions with Penn State University, and Matt was recently promoted to full clinical professor, and with that title does come a 5% salary increase, which is about $7,500, I believe. And so we just wanted to bring the matter to the commission, to just open it up to any discussion, if any commission members have any concerns, and then go to a motion to approve the salary if things are. All right,
I'd like
I'll
to
pass
move-
Senator Street.
I'd like to move we approve a salary.
Okay, all right.
I'll second.
All right, seconded by Judge McDermott. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone in opposition? Okay, all right. Thank you, Senator. There we go. We can bring Matt back in.
Now we're gonna get Mystic out of the room. No.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Matt, and congratulations.
Thank you. All right. As I was mentioning, I think last night, the June meeting serves a big purpose for us to kind of close out the fiscal year and be thinking about the new fiscal year. So there's a couple of action items that are necessary to think about having an operating expenses and then working with a service purchase contract with Penn State, but I'll get to those in a moment. In the notebook materials on page 22 and 23 is the status of our operating budget. And I just want to highlight two things, and it'll be potentially challenging to find them on this, but about halfway down on page 22, we see that we budgeted $8,000 essentially for education and other travel for this fiscal year. Well, you've heard how much Bobby and his unit have been traveling, 63 of 67 counties. So we actually spent $16,000, $8,000 extra than we anticipated in that space, which is a great use of our resources, of course, but just indicative of all the work that the education and outreach unit has been doing in reaching out to the different counties. And then on page 23, there's a line that says SGS Next Gen. As you know, we have this large enterprise project to rebuild SGS Web that we're now calling CASER, the Commission on Sentencing Records Exchange. During that fiscal time period, we had budgeted $900,000 there's been a lot of delays with that project, turnover of the vendor's staff. So you'll see that we didn't spend $680,000 of that. That's going to be rolled into this year's operating budget. It's just kind of a accounting piece of moving the funds. But when the larger budget context, that is where the area where, we're utilizing JRI funds for that, where we have the shortage for the rebuild in the larger scheme of things. But in essence, it prevented us in this fiscal year from having to go into our reserves to cover these bills that we have to pay, push that forward, and see what happens next fiscal year. So that's just a brief overview of the operating budget. The next item on the fiscal review is to close out this fiscal year. We received an invoice from Professor Mystic related to legal services that he provides for us in addition to his general counsel. As you know, we receive prisoner litigation and ongoing case in the Commonwealth Court. Professor Mystic responded to those, and this $9,875 invoice was to cover his legal expenses related to that mitigation. So
Just a brief update. In the Talbert case, we've completed all of the work required of us up to this point, and we're awaiting a decision by Commonwealth Court.
Do we have a motion to approve the payments to Professor Mystic?
I so move.
All right,
I'll
moved-
second.
all right, moved by Senator Street, seconded by DA Bible. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Okay, motion's approved.
great, thank you. Now we're going to turn to the proposed operating budget on page 24. And I think just a couple things to note that our operating budget for this year is the same proposed as last year. And a bulk of that is essentially shifting over this amount for the work on replacing SGS Web, the CASER project, moving $600,000 now into that for the need. But the other element, and I think this is timely related to the overall budget request that we have, is we know that the salaries through that last meeting, we talked about the compensation modernization plan, and staff salaries were increased. So our flat funding, as we've talked about, has been $2.55 million. The salaries for staff are now at $2.7 million without any other components. And our operating expenses, if you would, absent that SGS Web piece, is about 3.1 or 3.2 million under normal situations. So it shows the importance of this request for additional funding to the General Assembly for our operating budget. But having said that, you'll notice if you were to look on page 24, we have essentially retained the same estimates for the other functions and duties. There's a few reductions, specifically in we had a few contracts last year, which included designing the logo for the new CASER application, the contract with former executive director Bergstrom on his continued work for a few months. So right now built into the operating budget is several $1,000s less, not accommodating for those additional contracts. So we're seeking approval of the proposed operating budget.
Thank you, Matt. And I know you guys have been trying to figure out how to tighten the belt while still, following through on the salary update. So appreciate your diligence on it. Do we have a motion to approve the proposed budget?
I so move.
Moved by Senator Street,
Second.
seconded by Judge McLaughlin. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Seeing none. Budget approved. Thank you.
Great. And so related to the fiscal year 24-25 operating budget is because of our memorandum of understanding with Penn State University and the fact that staff are Penn State employees, we enter into a service purchase contract with them for an amount that would cover the salaries and then additional things such as fleet car services and any kind of billing we would receive. And functionally, we receive an invoice every month from the university, and then that invoice is paid from our Commonwealth accounts. So seeking a motion to approve a service purchase contract with Penn State University for $2,907,740.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the purchase
I so
contract?
move.
Moved by Senator Street,
I'll second again.
seconded by Judge McDermott. All those in favor? Any opposed? No. All right.
Great, thank you. And the last action item here is for the fiscal year 24-25 is related to the service purchase contract with Professor Mystic in his capacity as our legal counsel. As you know, Professor Mystic has served as counsel for the commission for about 25 years. His institutional knowledge and his understanding of the way the commission works been a tremendous benefit to us. And I also just want to restate that during my transition time, but also through this budget work, he's been invaluable to me. He makes himself available to me and Ryan essentially 24/7, weekends included. He's been an amazing resource. So we would look for a motion to for fiscal year 24-25 to enter into a service purchase contract for $50,000 with Professor Mystic.
I so move.
All right.
I'll second.
There we go. And from my understanding, this contract's a steal. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Contract's approved. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And with that, I will turn it to the Senior Deputy Director for the Administration and Outreach update.
Thank you, Matt. And once I conclude my update, I will turn it to Bobby, Manager of Education Outreach, to provide his update for the Education and Outreach Unit. And I recognize that during the policy meeting, I spoke a considerable amount. And fortunately for you, that means I don't have to speak as long here during the business meeting. I'll just would turn you to page 30 through 34 in your notebook. These would be the materials that I would reference. The first thing that you see on page 30 in the highlights is the reporting and verification project update. I would just note for the members here and for the public that we discussed that in great detail during the policy meeting. And so the information that would be relevant to the discussion on page 31 is a listing of reporting percentages for all counties, as well as statewide percentages. And then what you can see on page 33 through 34 is the survey, the county contextual survey that I had referenced during the policy meeting. The second item for administration and outreach that I wanted to provide a brief update on is the annual report project. And so if you recall, I believe back in March, we passed out physical copies of the commission's 2020-2021 annual report. We sort of called that our COVID edition. And what we are working on as staff right now and our target for the calendar year of 2024 is to finalize both the 2022 and the 2023 annual reports, both separate reports, not a dual report, but we will be working through that process internally. The good news is we have the data is done for the 2022 report. We will be looking to make that information available on the commission's website through our interactive data portals, as well as data tables available on our website consistent with how we handled the 2020, 2021 data. So we'll be moving to do that both with 2022 and shortly thereafter 2023 data. And then staff will work through the actual text of the annual reports and provide you updates in upcoming meetings. So we look forward to getting ourselves, back up or back on track as far as the annual reports from year to year. The next thing that you'll see on the administration and outreach highlight is the commission's operations manual. We have talked about this, I think, at every meeting, probably the last year and a half. And I'm happy to say that at this time, we have finalized the standard operational procedures, which is internal for staff and is really helpful. And as Matt had mentioned just previously, during this transition time from Mark as our executive director to Matt, it's been really helpful to have that document updated. And certainly as we onboard new staff, that sort of helps with our memory of the institution over time. And so just a note to say that we have that available now internally to staff, and we have, a full operations manual, which is really great. And then the last thing that I'll update on here today is the educational partnerships. And we have both educational partnerships and sort of research partnerships, which Matt can discuss. On the educational side, this April, we wrapped up the spring 2024 semester at Penn State. And so commission staff instruct a course on sentencing for the criminology and sociology department. And that's been a great relationship with the university over decades. And so we continue that relationship. This past spring, I don't remember what number of years 22 or 23 years of the Villanova sentencing workshop. And so we completed that this past spring with former commission member and chair, Professor Chanenson, and Secretary Harry joined us, if I recall, this year, and for a dinner speaker. And so we thank you very much for that. And we continue to, offer that workshop each year with law school students at Villanova and judges and practitioners across the state. So it's a really great workshop. And then during the spring semester, Professor Rego and Counsel Professor Mystic coordinated a visit from commission staff to Duquesne Law School to talk about sentencing and sanctions and corrections to two of their law school courses. And so we appreciate that opportunity. And I'll say lastly, as we approach the fall semester academically, we will again engage with instructing at Penn State University, and in the fall each year, commission staff instruct at Duquesne Law School a course on, yet again, sentencing and sanctions and so forth. So thank you for your time. I'll turn it to Bobby now.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. So I'll point you to my section of the materials. First, I'm going to be a little out of sequence, but case law and legislative updates, you can find that on page 2 of the supplemental materials. So if you have any questions related to that, happy to answer those. And that's tracked by Maria and our policy specialist. I'm going to lead with the education and outreach educational efforts. As was highlighted yesterday at the dinner meeting, and Matt mentioned budget-related expenses, the education and outreach unit has been busy since the fall of last year, and so we provided a handout yesterday. But I'm going to focus my updates here on what we've done just in calendar year 2024, January through May. 10th is the cutoff date. We facilitated 48 educational sessions and reached 1,603 people and presented for 72 hours. So pretty good amount of effort in that realm. I mentioned, I believe in the March meeting, just kind of framed out what our current version of education is, kind of referring to it internally as phase 2. So we have primarily Zoom oriented trainings just to reach more people effectively. And so we have one related to OGS and enhancements in sentencing levels, another focusing in on prior record score. And then we also did an update related to the changes in SGS Web related to 8th edition. So those have been our primary sessions that we've had through the end of January through now. We are also rolling out next week. We'll have our first rebooted introduction to Pennsylvania sentencing. And so that will be going through the once a month through the rest of the year. So looking forward to that. Ryan and I, at the end of July, will be doing a commission update session. So just kind of highlighting, where we're at as of the first 6 months of calendar year 2024, particularly focusing in on 8th edition, obviously, and other topical areas. Also, I'm really excited in the coming weeks, probably sooner than that, we'll be releasing our prior record score e-learning module. So as I mentioned previously, we had our first e-learning module released earlier this year. The prior record score one will be out very soon. And related to that, we're going to be starting at the end of July an advanced prior record score workshop. So as I think Brett mentioned earlier, looking at the general case flow and how that's tracking up, that should really coincide nicely with as more cases are coming into the system. People will maybe want another dose of prior record score in particular, given the number of changes in that area. So that will be coming out soon. And then finally, to close out the educational content, we're finalizing some scripts for YouTube short policy video. So as we talked about during the policy meeting, really, I think that'll be a good area for us to reach out to people more directly and provide that type of content. So also just general technical assistance for practitioners. We've had about 248, I believe, if I counted correctly, requests for assistance that we've provided to practitioners, and 229 SGS web role requests. So related incarcerated individual right to know requests, I believe we had 34 pieces of correspondence in one realm or another. And then closing out my report relates to the Education and Outreach Committee. Thanks to Representative Bonner and getting those scheduled. I did have in the material, I believe page 5 is supplemental, the notice that went out to committee members. So August 1st will be our next meeting of the Education Outreach Committee. And then I believe November 14th, if I'm remembering correctly from memory. So I don't know if anyone has any specific questions on my portion. Otherwise, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bobby. We're going to now transition to the research and technology update, and I'll just provide a short overview of the research partnerships. We continue to work really closely with the Criminal Justice Research Center, which is a center embedded within the Department of Sociology and Criminology. As part of that MOU with Penn State, I will be meeting with the chair of the department and the head of the Criminal Justice Research Center, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, to talk about how that process is working. One of the challenges for us through that MOU is they are responsible for recruiting and then providing us with students. So their cohort size of their classes have shrunk over because of COVID and whatever it might be. So there are fewer students for us to receive. So we continue to only have one graduate student. Typically, we would like to have 2 graduate students. And as a reminder, our commitment is $225,000 in kind back to the university by paying for these graduate assistantships or postdocs. So without being provided the individuals, we've been seeking additional strategies. I've been working with the political science department, the econ department. There's nothing that says they have to be from criminology. They could be from liberal arts college, essentially, is what our MOU is. So unfortunately, that hasn't yielded anything either, but we'll have 1 graduate student and 1 postdoc this fall. And that'll be a big topic of conversation, is how to ensure we're fulfilling our commitment back to the university through that MOU. Second on this list is just a brief conversation. I've talked about it earlier, is just this idea of an emphasis on interagency data sharing. So myself and Brad and others are really reaching out and working closely with DOC folks. The chairman mentioned about getting data from the parole board. Brad, and he can talk later about this in the next few weeks, is meeting with staff from PCCD to see how we can leverage that relationship to maybe get the county level data a lot more efficiently, be it from jails or probation or other programs locally. And, something as simple, and maybe it's not that simple, but our data doesn't have a flag for veteran status, as we talked about. The AOPC doesn't have a flag for veteran status. So how can we make sure that the data that we use administratively has the appropriate designations? We can't really do a study if there's no indication. And we've talked for a long time about how our data is limited in identifying Hispanics, and even in our sentencing data. And Brett and I in the 8th edition, and Christy and her team trying to improve that functionality. But it shouldn't start with us. It should start at the beginning with filing a court or arrest, and we should have access to all that information. And And so we're being strategic, thinking about ways to bring actors together to share this data and make sure we all have the best ways to link these things. And then one last piece, and then I'll turn it to Christy, is with the chair, there's been conversations about who has access to SGS Web, and working with JNet, or beginning to think about conversations with JNet to allow the defense bar or some element of the defense to have access to SGS Web, to be looking at that. Right now, they don't have access. They're not criminal justice users, so they are not provided that. So the chair, myself, and Christy will be having some conversations with leadership at JNet to see how that will proceed. Just logistically, and Christy could add on to this if I get it wrong, SGS Web is housed through JNet, and that's who does the clearances and the background components of that and manages who has access. So the pipeline, like who has entrance, is through the door of JNet. So there is a possibility to limit access maybe just to SGS Web if there's concern. And I'm not sure in the technology space what the solution is or the policy or solution will be, but happy to know we're having these conversations again about improving data access and working with our partners to achieve this, not only for our own research and analyses, but to improve the criminal justice system. So with that, I'll turn it to Christy for her update on application information technology.
Thank you, Matt, and time is it? Good morning, everyone. So just a few quick updates for the Applications and Information Technology Unit. Staff are continuing to work with our partner Informatrix on the development of the Commission on Sentencing Records Exchange, or CASER application, which is the application that will eventually replace SGS Web. The project team has completed probably about 40% of the development work that's estimated for the project. Right now, the team is focused on developing some of the most critical components of the application, such as the prior record score, the offense definition and setup, the offense gravity score determination, and then the sentencing guideline recommendation generation itself. As reported back in the March Commission meeting, Informatrix has had a significant issue with staff turnover that's led to many unexpected delays. These disruptions continued the past few months with the resignation of a key member of their project team, the development technical lead. Informatrix has provided a transition plan and is working on an updated project timeline once they have hired a replacement for him. So right now we are currently about 6 months behind the original schedule that they proposed. And while it's not unusual for IT projects to take longer than expected, these problems, seem to be getting worse instead of better on this project. In the coming weeks, the executive director, senior deputy director, and I will be having more conversations kind of about the state of the project and our options for moving forward. So hopefully, I hope to have some better news in September, but more to come on that. And then while our focus has been on building the new CASER application, staff do continue to support and maintain the legacy SGS Web application. Back in March, we deployed several minor fixes to the production environment related to the changes that were made to implement the 8th edition of the sentencing guidelines. And then we're working on a few other improvements and fixes. For example, we're adding some fields to the data export used for research and data analysis. We've also been working to make a report available to county users to help them monitor the submission of sentencing data to the commission for the JRI-2 reporting. And as Ryan went over during the policy meeting, we've been supporting the county reporting and certification effort. So lastly, I'll just end on the SGS Web usage. So as of April 30th, we had over 124,000 sentences that had been submitted with 2023 dates of sentence, and almost 30,000 sentences that had been submitted with 2024 dates of sentence. And that full report is available in the supplemental materials that were sent out prior to this meeting. So that's all I have. If there's no questions, I'll turn it back over to Executive Director.
If I may, I don't have a question, but I want to acknowledge how beneficial the updates are in terms of the county and the judges, because I know those are now being distributed to our judges on a regular basis. And then the judges can make, sometimes it's just mistakes. There's things that have been overlooked, and rather than waiting to the end of the year and trying to figure it all out, I know Philadelphia's numbers have increased dramatically for a variety of reasons, but I do believe that's one of the reasons, is because once a judge retires, it's difficult, and we have constant turnover to figure out what that judge's intent was. So that always leaves us with a gap. But if we find out that things are missing, we can really, try to keep our numbers as good as possible. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Judge, for that feedback. I think that's really important for us to hear, and providing that information in a timely way is really important as well. So with that, I'll turn it to Brett Miller for an update on the Research and Data Analysis Unit.
Thanks, Matt. So Ryan talked a little bit earlier about our annual report and county reporting verification. So I won't add too much else on that, but there's one point I did want to make, and that's that somewhere around the COVID time period, we really fell behind on producing our annual reports. And I think we're finally starting to catch back up. Where last year we released 2 years worth of annual reports. We're going to try to do the same again this year. And then, but I think we're schedule wise, we're several months ahead this year of where we have been. But I think we're on track to kind of get back to a regular schedule with producing these annual reports. We have an extension to the projects that I spoke about earlier with Ted. We gave an update where we were comparing short sentence parole participants to similar county jail individuals. And we have actually a bigger extension of that concept with our graduate student, Emerson Waite. He's conducting a study looking at not just short sentence parole, but actually the entire DOC population as compared to the county jail population, and doing a larger scale analysis looking at, especially for individuals with about 12 months or less confinement sentences, looking at that same concept we spoke about earlier, where are they better off at the county side or the state side? And then looking at all the various considerations that might go into that. So some counties might have funding issues at their county jails. Some counties might be more interested in the programming that's available on the state side. So there's more to it than just the recidivism rates that we discussed earlier. So we're going to attempt to dig into some more of those facets of this question. As Chairman Fox spoke about earlier, I was able to attend the International Paroling Authorities Conference in Seattle last month. Chairman Fox and I presented on the new parole guidelines, which went into effect about a year ago. And it was a great experience. One thing I learned was that Pennsylvania has a strong reputation in the world of parole. I believe Pennsylvania leads the nation in terms of the parole supervision population. So our session was really well attended. We got really good feedback and had a lot of interest from other states. And as the chairman mentioned, even other countries. So we've been kind of communicating back and forth since the conference with some individuals, like you mentioned, from South Africa, from Canada. And it's been just a really good opportunity to share some of our experiences, some of the new things we're doing in Pennsylvania. We continue to work on our correctional population simulation models. This is an element that's required of us in our enabling legislation, is to have these simulation models. And one thing we hope to do is better incorporate these with our day-to-day operations, and especially working together with our fellow agencies, the DOC, the parole board, the courts. And our hope is that we can use these models as a way to give some feedback to the courts, some early information to DOC in terms of, are there shifting populations in terms of who's being sentenced to DOC? Where are things trending? And so really just hoping to incorporate these as more of a regular part of a process where we're maintaining communication and engagement with DOC and our fellow agencies. And finally, we continue to get many data requests. We average probably 10 to 15 external data requests that are asking us to produce custom reports or custom data sets every quarter. And this is probably our busiest time of the year as we head into the budget season. We tend to get a lot of legislative requests looking for impacts on changes to certain offenses, to sentencing policies. And so we expect to continue to be busy fulfilling those data requests over the next couple of months here. And I think that's all I have. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions. If not, we can send it back to Matt.
Great. Thanks, Brett. I think just one thing to note about the, I'm sorry.
Did you say we had the largest population under supervision?
Under state parole supervision, I believe we have the largest in the U.S.
Larger than California and Texas? States like that?
A lot of that is due to the rules for eligibility for parole. So in Pennsylvania, essentially everyone is eligible for parole other than life sentences. But I do believe we have the largest in the U.S.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So just a quick note on the earlier presentation with Ted and Brett. We're going to work on a written report to accompany that analysis and that presentation, and we'll certainly share it with the commission members, but make that available on our website for consumption and consideration by public and other stakeholders. So turn it to Ryan now for a quick policy update.
Thank you, Matt. I'll just turn you to pages 60, well, I should say page 45 of the notebook, but the supplemental materials, page 61 through 70 are for your reference. As I did with the administration and outreach update, likewise here, I spent a majority of our time during the policy meeting talking about certification and compliance and providing you that update. We've provided some highlights in the notebook, and that really reflects a lot of the comments that I made during the policy meeting, so I don't want to revisit that here. The next bullet that you see on the screen talks about recently enacted legislation, and there has been some recently enacted legislation since the last time we met. More broadly, the Education Outreach Unit tracks the legislation, and we follow that along. And what you can find in your supplemental materials are the staff's efforts in tracking legislation, making sure we know what's going on in the General Assembly, and in particular, if it's impacting sentencing or resentencing and so forth. And so I don't intend to review the supplemental materials for you other than to say, please, reference those and know that we're tracking them. Maybe most importantly is that anytime there are new offenses or modified existing offenses, the commission's omnibus policies provide the guidance for the offense gravity scores for those new and modified offenses. And we track the legislation and we update SGS Web to reflect that. And so we are, following along as we go through, and I encourage you to look at the supplemental information. There's also a listing of all of the offenses since the adoption of the 8th edition. So while Acts 13, 16, and 17 are the updates since our March meeting, we keep an ongoing list of offenses since the adoption and the effective date of the 8th edition guidelines. And then also included is the listing of the errata that I talked about during the policy meeting. So that's my summary for you on the policy update. And I'll go back one here. And I'll also provide a brief update under the miscellaneous items of the agenda. And this is about NASC. And I apologize, the slide isn't following along up here. But as Matt mentioned earlier, and we talked about during the March meeting, there is a National Association of Sentencing Commissions. Staff have been engaged with attending that yearly since its inception. And we continue to do that. It's one of, if not the only association that we have of similarly situated commissions across the country. And I know some of our members have attended in previous years in Portland and in Tahoe last year. And our chair will be attending again this year and engaging in a discussion at the NASC conference in Raleigh, North Carolina. And so we as we continue to encourage members to join us, We are one of the largest commissions in the country, and when we represent well at this, and we are the second oldest. You could maybe argue the oldest commission in the country, with Minnesota, the two of us. And so we are leaned on in a big way across the country and looked at for best practices. And so we like to make sure that we offer that up and encourage members to attend. And I think it's my duty to ask on behalf of the executive director and Jay Dean and the administrative unit, if you would like to attend, could you indicate that intention by June 21st? We will help coordinate in registering for the conference and also coordinating travel for members. So please feel free to reach out either to myself and or Jay Dean, and we can discuss that.
Where's the conference again?
I'm sorry, Senator?
Where is it?
In Raleigh, North Carolina. And it is August 6th through August 8th. Thank you, because I didn't say that. Yeah. So with that, I will turn it to Matt.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. And one last plug for the conference. I currently serve as the vice president of the National Association of Sentencing Commissions. My second term, I think I have 2 years left. Will be 6 years serving in that capacity, and play a hand in developing the agenda for the conference. NASC is a very small organization. There's not a lot of sentencing commissions. There's not a lot of staff at these sentencing commissions. So it's a very cozy conference, about 100 members, and a real opportunity to meet, as Ryan said, similarly situated individuals, but to hear about policies and practices and ways that commissions organize and conduct business. So another, I think, exciting agenda to complement that. One of the speakers that many of the staff will be presenting and holding sessions, Bobby and Christy, been recruiting the first executive director of the Sentencing Commission, John Kramer, who I believe retired in 1995, maybe, as the executive director. Hopefully we'll be on a panel with the former chair of the Sentencing Commission, Steve Chanenson, talking about sort of the early foundations of thinking about guidelines, and it'd just be nice to have one of the original people and have John join us. And I think that'll be a really cool experience. So the last thing on the agenda before a motion for adjournment is to mention that the next meeting will be September 4th and 5th. And as you know, the September meeting historically is in State College. So we'll work on getting logistics and arrangements for you for a hotel. The meeting will be, the actual meetings, the policy and the business meetings will be hosted in the commission offices in our conference room. Great opportunity for commission members to meet other staff who don't come to the meetings typically. Of course, we'll have a dinner meeting somewhere downtown. And I haven't talked to the chair yet about this, but I think with Senate Resolution 196 most likely passing, it would be great, in my opinion, to have a dinner speaker, maybe somebody from the Veterans Bureau or somebody informed about PTSI or PTSD, with veterans, speak to the commission to help us kind of kick off that project. And this is something, since I was at the commission, I believe only one time we had a dinner speaker, and it was related to domestic violence pretrial risk assessment many years ago already, 5 years ago. And I think it was really a great opportunity to hear a different voice from an expert in the field to encourage and to inspire the work of the commission staff on a particular topic. So more to come on that, but I'll be communicating with the chair. And the meeting is a little bit different in terms of the policy meeting. We view this typically as our strategic planning session. So each of the units will be talking about the activities for that from September onward for the year. And a lot of focus is linking those directly to our enabling legislation. So how does our activities, some of them are pretty broad. If you say a clearinghouse of data, a lot of things Brett does fits under that umbrella. But making sure that our initiatives and our focus from the next 12 months starting in September aligns with what the commission members think we should be focusing on and doing. And obviously, Senate Resolution 196 will determine a lot of what some of the staff are doing in the 8th edition guidelines. There shouldn't be too much of a surprise of what we're doing and what we're going to be focusing on. So before I turn it to the chair, I just want to open it for any other comments or questions you might have of staff.
You also can't forget the ice cream.
Yes, we'll do a pool or poll of what flavors people like. There used to be a desire for peachy paterno by one of our members, so we would always have peach ice cream.
Wow, sounds good. Okay, well, if there's no other business, this commission meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Oh, we need a motion to, I remember my chair passed. We need a motion to adjourn. Moved by Merzko, seconded by Senator Street. All right, thank you.